Hey Brew Crew, and welcome back to another Brew Crew review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Rise. Rise has 2 to 4 players competing to move up different tracks, which represent different aspects of running a city. You'll be trying to build combos to increase your efficiency while also managing your pollution and unrest that could have major negative effects. Sit down to the table for a quick rules overview, and then we'll come back up for my review. Rise is played over 12 rounds. Each round begins by laying out alternating action cards and event cards, and then beginning with the player whose factory is in the first spot on the board, then the second and third, and so on. Players will choose which action card they will activate for the round. There are a couple things to consider when you're choosing an action card. Each action card has both a top and a bottom action. The top action is typically free. The bottom action usually has a cost, but is often a much better action. Depending on where the card is placed in the action selection board, there may be additional costs as well. For example, the one farthest to the left costs 0, then 1, 2, or 3 additional coins. Finally, you'll want to make sure to pay attention to the events that have come up as well. Every player will take the benefit or the penalty from the event cards ahead of them on the action selection board. Players are allowed to place their factory on a card where someone else has already placed their factory. If you do so, you'll put your factory to the left of that player's factory, meaning that you'll be able to act first during the resolution phase. However, this will give them the opportunity to flip over one of their school tiles and use its ability, which we'll talk about later, but just for now, know that it will provide them with a small benefit. Once all players have placed their factories, then going from left to right, each player will perform the action of the card that they placed on, paying any additional cost if necessary. For example, we'd start here, and this player would take their action. Once that player has completed their action, they'll move their factory up to the number 1 spot on the player order track. Then we resolve the first event. The event applies to every player who has not yet taken their action. So this player who went first would not be impacted by this action. Then we move on to this card, and so on, all the way down the line. Remember that the order of your factories matters, and players whose factories are farthest to the left will activate first. As players activate their actions, that will give them the ability to start moving up tracks, depending on the track symbol that's on the action card chosen. Some may allow you to go up multiple tracks, or choose which track you would prefer to go up, while others may cause you to move down on either the satisfaction or conservation track. As players move their tokens up the different tracks, they'll activate each icon that they pass on that track, which will usually allow them to move up other tracks as well, but may also give you points, money, or let you use one of your school tokens. An important thing to remember is that if the icon has a red background, then you must perform that action. Any other icon, though, you may perform that action. Typically, the red actions will only be for the conservation and the satisfaction tracks. Each of the tracks has both a side A and a side B. And you'll choose which to use at the beginning of the game. For this overview, though, we're just going to go over the side A tracks just to keep things brief, but the B side will work very similarly for the most part with some minor changes. Let's start off by taking a look at the school track. You've heard me mention a couple of times about the school tokens that you can take. Each player will start with one, but you'll be able to get more from this school track. When you advance up the school track, you'll follow the arrows going between the large spaces and the small spaces. Any number of tokens can be in a large space, but only one token can occupy these small spaces. When you advance your token to a small space that will have a school tile on it, then you can claim that tile. School tokens can be activated whenever you take an action or move to a space that contains this symbol here with the exclamation. When you do, you can flip over one of your school tiles and take the action on it. Usually these are going to let you move up one of the other tracks. If you ever activate this icon here, this will allow you to refresh all of your used school tokens. Here we have the press track. This board consists of 4 separate small paths. Once a player starts moving down one of these paths, they must complete it before moving on to a different path. Just like on the school track, only one token can be on a small space at a time. However, multiple tokens may travel down the same path. Players will just leapfrog any tokens that they move past, but they will not be able to take the action of any space that they passed in this way. Once you reach the final path or final space on a path, you'll be able to immediately move back to the large space in the center, where you'll be able to choose a different path to go down. Next, we'll look at the science track. This one is pretty straightforward. Moving up this track mainly lets you move up on other tracks as well. If you land on a space like this, then you will activate both actions. If you land on a space like this, you will choose which action you would like to activate. There are also some spaces here that will provide points. The politics track provides additional track movement as well, but also has some negative effects associated with it, and also some spaces to gain money. Additionally, each space that you've moved up on the politics track will be worth a point at the end of the game. The bureau track has dotted lines connected to each space. Players moving up this track do not immediately receive the benefits. However, at any time, a player can choose to activate that track, taking the action connected by a dotted line to where their token is, and then moving their token back to the start space. Whenever this activation happens, players will also get to refresh any of their used school tiles. This track will also allow you to increase the amount of money that you'll be able to store from round to round by flipping over your bank token. Moving up the industry track will allow you to increase your income the farther up you move, sometimes increasing the amount of money you gain, and sometimes also providing points that you will gain during income as well. Each space on this track, though, will cause you to move your token down the conservation track. As you move down the conservation track, you'll start to take penalties. If you drop to this space here, then you will take one of these tokens. Now you're no longer able to use your school tiles. If you drop to the last space, you will also move down 2 spaces on the satisfaction track. Actions with this icon here will allow you to move back up your conservation track. The bank track will allow players to ignore the additional costs for action spaces that are printed on the action selection board. If you reach this space, then the second action selection space is now free for you. Here, the third space is free, and if you make it this far, then all 4 action spaces are now free to you. There are also a few spaces on this track that will provide money and points. However, every step on this track will cause you to move down on the satisfaction track. Moving down the satisfaction track may cause you to take negative points at the end of the game. However, taking this action to increase the satisfaction could provide you with positive points at game end. And also at the end of each round, whoever is furthest up the satisfaction track, but not in the starting space, is going to score an additional point. One of the best ways to increase satisfaction is by moving up the culture track. This track has several spaces that will allow you to pay a cost to move up the satisfaction track. There are also 2 spaces on this track that will allow you to exchange money for victory points. Once each player has activated their factories, the round ends. Check to see if anyone has scored points on the satisfaction track, and also check to see how much money you can carry over to the next round. Players start with a bank, which will allow them to carry over $5, which can be upgraded through various actions to allow them to carry over $10 to the next round. Discard any money that is over the appropriate amount. Beginning with the next round, all players will receive income based on where they are on the industry track. Then discard the previous round's action cards and event cards, deal out 4 new action and 3 new events, and play starts again with the player whose factory is in the number 1 space on the turn order track. This is going to continue for 12 rounds until all the action and event cards have run out. Once the final round is finished, players will add up their scores for each space moved up on the politics track and gain or lose points depending on their position on the satisfaction track, and whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. Alright, that's a high-level overview of the gameplay. Let's head back up and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, first off, let's talk about the cover. It's strange. I guess it kind of works for this type of game, but I do think all these weird smoke people are a little bit off-putting. Also, the design of the action and event cards looks a little bit outdated in my opinion, although it's possible that that was the aesthetic that they were going for. Outside of that, though, the trackboards themselves look fine, and all of the iconography in the game is clear and easy to explain. I found this game relatively easy to teach because these icons are easy enough to explain. The rulebook also has a good reference for some of the more complex actions and events. The action selection mechanism in this game is very interesting. Choosing the first action will be cheaper, but you will miss out on some potentially positive events. Choosing a later action is going to cost more, but you'll get to take advantage of more events as well. Although maybe an event comes up that really is not good for you, so that's something else you'll need to consider. I also like that players are never blocked out of an action. If you choose to take an action where someone else already has placed their factory, you get to go before them, but you also give them a small benefit as well. I do tend to like this kind of positive player interaction. For me, the fun of this game comes in building up combos of moves on your turn. It's possible for you to trigger a lot of different movements with one action, which feels incredibly satisfying. Although I'll admit that if you do have a big turn, it can get a little difficult to keep track of all of your potential actions and making sure that you've done them all. Generally speaking, though, you'll probably only have a few turns like that in an entire game, so it's usually not too bad. Managing the pollution and unrest tracks can sometimes get difficult, which I actually like. It's a fun puzzle to solve, trying to achieve a balance between getting more income or better discounts on your actions versus not dropping on the pollution track to the point that you can't use your school tokens, or on the unrest track so that you end up losing a lot of points at the end of the game. I also appreciate the fact that the track tiles are double-sided and can change the game a little bit. The changes are fairly minor, but do provide a little bit of variety. That being said, if you're not interested in a game that is all about moving up tracks, then I'm not sure that this would be the game for you. Personally, the action selection and the combos are enough to keep me interested for now, and I'm hoping to see an expansion someday to add just a little bit more variety to the tracks and the events. Overall, we enjoyed Rise, maybe even a little bit more than we thought we would, which is always a pleasant surprise. As far as BGG ratings go, I give this one a 7.5. I really enjoyed finding those big combos and trying to move up several tracks with just one action. We'll have to wait to see if this one has staying power for me. Like I said in my review, it would be great to see an expansion to keep things fresh. But for now, though, we really liked and recommend checking out Rise. And until next time, let's get another round for the table. Hey everybody, don't forget to like and comment on this video. If you found value in this video at all, it would mean a lot to us if you consider subscribing to the channel as well. Don't forget to click the notification button so you'll know when we put out a new video. Cheers!